Good evening. Calling the school committee, regional committee together, Quabbin. Thursday, February 13th at 6:36 p.m., 6:35 p.m. First item is the statement regarding recording.
Good evening. This meeting will be recorded and will be posted to YouTube and other social media platforms. By participating in this meeting, you understand that the recording could contain your video stream or your audio stream, including images of yourself or anyone in the room with you. If you choose to enable your video or audio device during the meeting, as well as anything or anyone else that may be in the background, could be recorded. The recording could include any opinions you contribute and anything you say about yourself. On occasion, chat within the meeting could also be captured in the meeting recording. Therefore, anyone attending the recorded meeting may have aspects of their personal data recorded if they actively participate or not.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome for everybody coming out on this lousy evening. And we still have a lot of work to do. And the first item is attendance.
Dr. Allen, I believe he's online tonight. Mr. Marsh won't be with us. Mr. Deschamps?
Here.
Mr. Willannon?
Here.
Ms. Kelly? Here. Ms. Garvey, I don't believe will be here. Ms. Party won't be here. Mrs. Chamberlain?
Here.
Ms. Muck?
Here.
Mr. Afonso?
Here.
Mr. Wiggler?
Here.
Mrs. Thompson?
Here.
Mr. Nutter?
Here.
Ms. LaRange?
Here on Zoom.
Good.
Thank you.
And Zoom.
Ms. Reeves?
Here on Zoom.
Thank you. And Mr. Brophy?
Here. With the support of my colleagues, like they take some items out of order, I'd like to do the audit first. And then after that, I'd like to, with your approval, go to the new business for the NJROTC trip, the senior class trip, just a vote on that, and the weekend hiking club. If there's no objection, we will go in that order and then get back to the agenda.
You don't want to do minutes first?
No, I'll come back to that. Turn it over to audit.
Right, we met, actually, that's why we just got here. We're all back and met with Peacock. He should be online.
He is, yep.
And he had, once again, we have our usual pretty positive news, but I will allow him to present that to us.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you all for having me tonight. We did just kind of go through sort of the nuts and bolts and took a little bit of a deeper dive, if you will, with the subcommittee. So I'll keep it, as I heard up front too, you have a long night or a heavy agenda. So I'll try to keep it at a 10,000 foot level, but at the end, I'm more than happy if anybody has any specific questions. I'm more than happy to address those. I did something I did mention to the subcommittee. I did want to just mention, I didn't know whether I would see Cheryl here tonight, where she has come back to help a little bit, seeing that her replacement didn't last that long. And I just wanted to mention what, from an auditor, I've been doing this for over 30 years now. And suddenly I have many clients that have people retiring. And I actually met Cheryl. We started, maybe a year or so apart from each other. Me as an auditor and she was at Wachusett. And
Right.
all I would say, without beating up the point, is that most people that we're getting ready to conduct their audit, and they're all excited about retiring in 2 weeks or at the end of the conclusion of the audit. Quite often, they're not all involved. They're kind of done, checked out, however you want to call it. But what I would suggest is Cheryl, she wanted to stick it out and assist the district getting through her final audit, and wanted to persevere with, because this was a little bit different year. We as a firm have merged multiple times this year. It's as well, we've gone from a 30-member firm to now 12,000 people. So it's been a whirlwind year for myself as well as auditing standards have changed. New GASBs one of them didn't impact the district, but there was a lot of new accounting information, auditing information that had to be sort of digested and understood this year. So it made for a bit more, I don't like the word cumbersome, but a cumbersome, a less efficient audit than in the past, because we had to ask for a lot more info and ask a lot more questions, a little bit deeper dive than maybe we've had to do in the past. But the new regulations required us to do so. And I just wanted to say, I think it's a big thumbs up, because Cheryl was in with us early. She'd stay late, her and her team, and got us everything we needed right away. Again, I'll try to stay at the 10,000-foot level and just so I don't take too much time here. We're talking about the fiscal 24 financial statements and the federal report on expenditures of federal award programs, which essentially accumulates and reports to the federal government all federal dollars that the district spent or expended within the current fiscal year. And for me, current fiscal year is, as we're talking, fiscal 24. For the financial statements, the district, again, did receive what we call an unmodified opinion. That is the best opinion that you can receive. That's a clean opinion. That means that we did not have any material changes to any of the information that was provided from the district. We did not have any adjustments that we needed to provide to the finance team to make to the general ledger. Questions that we asked were supported both timely and accurately with proper supporting documentation. Your team, again, has come through each and every year when we conduct the audit, and they make us a priority. We book kind of the same weeks each year, and maybe that's how they work it into their schedule. I can't speak for them, but they make the audit a priority and really work hard to get us what we need in a timely manner and really help the audit to go smooth. But the only thing I would say to that, in case anyone's wondering, just being efficient and getting us the information doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to come up with questions, concerns, issues, that type of thing. From an audit standpoint, when we see that information is able, or excuse me, balances within the general ledger are able to be supported with proper documentation in a timely manner, when we ask your financial team questions, and even if they don't have that document sitting right there on their desk, it's very evident that they know what we're asking about, which shows that they're involved in their job, the finances of the district. And if something isn't sitting right there on their desk, literally, I'm not sure that there's many things that we wait a half an hour for, quite frankly. And to me, as an auditor, after all these years, that again is very good evidence that your team is involved, knows what's going on, and is working to do things properly and support the facts and figures that the district is reporting, both from an audit standpoint, both to the federal government, state government, what have you, all the reporting necessary. Anything that we ask for is very readily available and provided to us. The budget is supported. We really are very happy with the way that the audit for the Quabbin District goes. So we thank you. From my team, I thank you a lot for that. I won't bore you with all of the accounts. Again, cash is king. We have to beat the heck out of cash to make sure that the reconciling items and reconciliations are occurring timely and everything makes sense, of which there were no issues there at all. General fund did go down a little bit this year, but simply because there was a little bit more voted to balance the general fund budget this year. However, of the 760,000 that was voted, only about 470 was needed to balance in the end. And, that's pretty consistent of what we've been seeing this year across our client base. And one of the main reasons, in my opinion, from what we're seeing is with COVID, when COVID came and all the different federal grants were coming out, some grants were very specific to certain programs. Other grants gave the district a lot of leeway to help supplement expenditures of the general fund, whether it be payroll or capital or what have you. There, some of them, such as the Education Stabilization Fund, had some restrictions, but also a lot of leeway in how the district could utilize those funds. And now that we're 4 years out here, those funds are now drying up across the board, not just for Quabbin. And what we're seeing is, now the general fund is really getting back to how it was, we'll call it pre-pandemic, if you will. But again, every test, because we have to go through all the major cycles, revenue, expenditures, journal entries posted, payroll posted to the ledgers, do testing of each and every cycle, and obtain supporting documentation for what we've seen. It's very clear that the district, we haven't come up with any ineligible costs that were paid through the budget. Everything was utilized for what the budget was voted for. We will speak, or I'll kind of blend in the federal report. We're also required to look at specific grants each year, depending on where the dollars are spent. There's a process us as auditors have to go through to determine which grants have to get audited. This year was the child nutrition cluster and the special education cluster, both of which received, again, unmodified opinions, just as the financials did. And what that means is that for all the compliance requirements that the federal government gives us as auditors, that they want us to dot as I's and cross as T's, we were able to do so. All of the necessary info was provided to us, again, not only accurately, but timely. This year, sometimes what I'll say is we've had a management letter. Management letter would be utilized to discuss things that maybe sometimes could be what I would refer to as housekeeping. Maybe it wasn't necessarily a major error. It was just that maybe here's a way a process could work a little better, or here's how some information flow could be a little better. Then there's things such as material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, of which the district doesn't want in their management letter. And now that we've merged and we're a much larger firm now, we utilize a management letter a little differently. And as auditors, we're allowed to verbally discuss with management if there are what we'll call housekeeping issues, and we're only required to put in writing anything that rises to the level of either a significant deficiency or a material weakness, of which I'm happy to suggest that there were none. And this year, boy, the district really had their I's dotted because we had no adjustments necessary to the ledger, as I mentioned, and we did not have any housekeeping issues that we felt necessary to bring up to management. So this was, although in the past, I know that each year it feels as if the audit goes smoothly. I have to admit, an audit is a lot of work. This year was the perfect storm for us of not only merging into a much larger firm with a whole new set of rules and regulations to follow, but also there was new GASB rules this year, standards that came out, as well as other auditing standards that caused a whole lot more work for the district's financial team, because we had a lot more questions to ask and a lot more info to ask for. Nobody skipped a beat. Everything we asked for was provided and supported all the balances properly. And honestly, we did not have a housekeeping issue that we felt even necessary to bring up to management's attention this year. This was probably, in my 30 years of doing this although Quabbin has had a really clean audit report for years, and it's clearly due to your team, this year was, I think, exceptional. It was a very smooth and clean audit. We're a little bit later again this year, but again, one, it was due to us merging into a much, much larger firm, and the process of getting reports approved and finalized and out the door is a little bit different. And so it was a learning curve for us, and we're sort of still learning, but we should recognize much more of those efficiencies next time through. But also Worcester Regional, the actuaries, there's only a small handful of actuaries that handle both the OPEB and the pension valuations within the state of Massachusetts. And like everybody, they're having a hard time finding and keeping good people, and everybody's a little bit backed up. And I think, as we know, we've talked about Worcester in the past, usually they're a little bit, I can't speak as to the exact why, but sometimes they are a little bit behind on getting their info and getting everything done for the valuation and such. So it was sort of a twofold. I cannot say it was all Worcester Regional this year. It was partly Worcester and or us changing to a much larger firm and having a lot more I's to dot and having to learn the process of being able to have an audit approved and get ultimately permission to essentially submit and to the district their final reports. So it was a little bit of our fault, if I could say it that way, because we were learning as well this year. But as far as the district goes and what was provided and how it went, honestly, the audit could not have gone any better. I think it even went better than in previous years. We've had some small housekeeping issues before, but this year was extremely clean. I can certainly dive deeper. I don't want to take up more of your time if you have a large agenda, but I'm more than happy to answer any and all questions if there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Peacock. I'll ask to see if there are any questions from any school committee members. Joe?
Is the audit report going to be made available to the school committee members?
I have a copy right here if you'd like it, and it's
Oh, yes.
going in the drive.
It's also in the drive.
It will be, yep.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions? Just a quick follow, Mr. Peacock. Again, thank you. I think, is this your third year with us?
Yes.
Yeah, third year with us. Thank you. And we hear you loud and clear of changes in your organization. And even though we had some changes, with Cheryl retiring and then the business manager moving on as, last month. I'm glad that material was given to you quickly, accurately, succinctly. And I just wanted to make a comment that, again, what I hear, not only is it a clean, unmodified documents, accounting is appropriate and to the penny. And the team is competent, caring, and effective. That's what I heard from you, correct?
I could not have said that better myself.
And I am not looking for a statement, but a written statement. But sometimes sometimes folks get a little upset if we have a little money in our E&D. And over the years, we have never had a lot of E&D. And I think in 18 years, maybe once we had close to 5%. I know the auditors over the years have recommended in putting that in writing. And then, of course, we were taking money out to balance the budget or to reduce assessments is a better way of putting it, to reduce assessments and to use the monies appropriately and help out any and everywhere we can. This year, the E&D audit figure, I think, is about 380. I could be wrong. I don't have my figure in that. Do you know what the E&D number and percentage was that is in abeyance?
If I understand the question correctly, as far as what the district received for certified E&D for fiscal 24, I apologize. That would have probably been done after we left and we're finishing up the audit.
Okay.
I am not aware of where that figure came in for this year, but I do agree with the comments that you made as far as how the district has historically utilized, if there were any excess funds and how they were used. There's always been all of the member communities and your students' best intentions at heart from where we're sitting. But unfortunately, I do not know where the E&D was certified.
No, that's okay. I just, the superintendent leaned over. It was, and Mr. Wiggler told us last month, I just didn't write it down and put it where I needed to. But it was 881,000 was the figure.
Okay.
But again, from a percentage point, that's still very low. Again, from a district point of view, we are budgeting appropriately. The accounting is clear. The reconciliation, A to B and B to C equals where it's supposed to be and what accounts are there. And like you said, cash is king. So any of those enterprise accounts are balanced and are overseen correctly, correct?
Every month. Every
Okay.
month.
Good, that's all I just want to say again, thank you for the audit. We understand for the later in the calendar year, that's okay for us. But again, we always want to make sure we have, as a regional district, the audit and what we need to do, how to do it, and at the same time, state the importance of the employees that we have that budget and allocate a budget to educate our kids in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? And I have somebody online?
Doesn't appear that way.
Hmm?
Doesn't appear that anyone has any questions.
Okay. Your motion?
Do you want me to do it now or wait till we go through the subcommittees? Doesn't matter to me.
We can wait. Let's over to you.
Yes, let's wait.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Peacock?
No, I'm okay if everybody else is okay.
Uh,
Peacock, I hope you feel better.
It's been a long week. I don't, I have that flu that's going around that seems to
yeah.
be lasting for a week or two. It just won't seem to go away, but I thank you for that. I hope to soon myself.
More important, hopefully your daughters can get to their vacation without catching it.
It's my wife and daughters, and they banned me to the guest room so that they leave on Sunday evening. So one, they're hoping the snow doesn't disturb them, and two, nobody wants to be near dad and get sick before their vacay. So yeah, so I've been. Let's just say it's been a little bit of the bachelor life for a few days.
That's optimism. Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you all again for your time. Pleasure to see you all again.
thank you, sir.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Right.
Right. We'll go out of order. Request for approval for the NJROTC International Field Trip to Europe, April 2026.
Second, I'll pull it up. Captain Brennick has a brief presentation.
That he has driven out here on a snow night for.
So my appointed place of duty, ma'am. Ready? Oh, slowly. Okay.
Come in. There you go.
Quabbin NJOTC going to Europe, only upon your approval tonight, hopefully. So, this is our agenda real quickly. And the first question is why travel? You've been very generous with me in the past. We've been going on trips since 2012, a couple of times out to Pearl Harbor. And then this upper left-hand corner there in the middle on the top, those were to London, Paris, Normandy. I'm not in that picture with Mr. Devine, but we were Viking killers there up in ice in 2022. And then this past April, we were in Germany, Switzerland, a little bit of time in Austria and in Venice. So we traveled so that we can go ahead and grow, quite frankly. I was looking at some material earlier today, and there's 6 things. Cultural awareness. These are all right out of SEL, quite frankly. Cultural awareness, collaboration, communication, listening, understanding, accepting, growth mindset, self-awareness, things of that nature. That's what travel does for these kids. It really does change them. When we went to Normandy, they came back and they wrote essays about the impact of standing on the beaches of Normandy 70 years after the amphibious landing there. Last year, they came back. If you were at the Memorial Day Assembly, you heard a couple of our students talk about the experience of visiting Dachau, which is in the lower right-hand corner. It changes the way that they see the world and they see themselves. Very good at self-awareness. Next, please. EF tours right out of Boston. I've used them a couple of times before. We didn't use them to go to Europe this past time. I went with Explorica. They were terrific, but EF had exactly what I was looking for. Some major cities and a lot of World War II history. So to understand the world today based on what happened over there in Europe and the world 80 years ago. They've got lots of experience. Quabbin uses them quite a bit. Next one, please. They are worldwide. They have offices all over. I took the one chart out that has about 300 different little blue dots all over the world to show where they're located at in case we have an emergency or whatever contact. But this is what they offer us. Local support and right out of Boston. Lots of safety precautions. They learn their lessons from the pandemic. So they're much more forgiving, much more cooperative, and they've got some good protection plans that allow the kids, if they have to drop out, to get their money back. Much more reasonable than they were in 2020. Next, please. This is the itinerary here, the big travel plan, going into Berlin, passing through Dresden on the way to Prague, going to Krakow with an offshoot to Auschwitz, then through the mountains into Budapest, and then home over the course of 10 days. A little bit more detail. I'm not going to go through every single day. And frankly, I'm going there to learn as much as the kids. I've done my research for tonight's meeting and to go ahead and pitch it to the families here in a couple of weeks. But nevertheless, I'll summarize with this. These are all Eastern European countries, formerly communist countries. Every one of them has been invaded by the Soviet Union when they were part of the Warsaw Pact, which is really kind of an interesting thing. And every one of them has rebuilt tremendously, and they have numerous UNESCO heritage sites certified. And that's what each of those 5 days up there. And if you go to the next slide, and these last 5 days here, the first day and the last day are obviously a travel. The other 8 days, we're going to be seeing an awful lot. And we're going to go back to we're going to go to Auschwitz and visit that. It's a different take. Over 1 million Jews were killed there in World War II, plus a lot of other folks. We're going to visit the headquarters for SS, which I think will be very, very interesting. We're going to Potsdam to see how the location of where they decided how the world was going to be rebuilt and separated at the end of World War II. So we're going to see a lot of historic stuff and a lot of good cultural stuff for today, architecture in particular. Next, please. These are just some of the pictures here, some of the places that we'll see. We don't need to dwell on these. The Berlin Wall. The Berlin Wall was up for about 40 years, and now it's been down for getting close to 40 years. So we're kind of past that. We see pieces of it around our country. Now we'll get to see what's left of it over there. Next, please. And next. So these are the travel dates. They can slide. We won't know for certain until they start to make airline reservations, and that will happen somewhere in January. But those are the dates that I gave them. It goes 1 day before vacation starts to 1 day after. Whatever day we come back, the next day the kids will be in school if it's not a Saturday or Sunday, though. I guarantee you that. They don't miss school. And these are the things that are included. Round trip airfare out of Boston. Hotels, 3 to 4 to a room, as usual, all with private baths. The meals, breakfast and dinner are included, and the kids are on their own. Believe me, when the bus stops at a bus stop, they are experts at seeking out garbage food that's not good for their bodies. And there's nothing I can do about that. They eat more trash food than I've ever eaten in my life, I swear. But so that's on their dime. Tour director, I've actually asked for the same tour director that we had in Iceland because he did mainland Europe and he was so popular up there. But we'll see if we get him or not. Transportation, local guides, there'll be several of those. And then entrances to landmarks and such. Go ahead, please. Travelers' responsibilities, passports, of course. Some will wait till the last minute, but hopefully not. When we were getting ready to go to Iceland, there was a dog actually ate the passport.
Oh.
They had 1 week to get a new one. The visas, I've checked all the countries, and at present, none of the countries require us to get visas because we'll be in each one of those countries for less than 90 days. Baggage fees, tips, and such. What I do for the price, you'll see the price at the very end of this. I tack on an additional $200, which they pay to me. And then I take that and I pay for all the tips so they don't have to worry about it. Baggage fees so they don't have to worry about it. Transportation to and from Boston, because that's not included in it. And then EF Travel, I think, does a nice job. When they're going along, they see an opportunity to just do a pop-up excursion. I've talked about that in here before. And instead of them digging into their wallets to get out money, I have that money that they've given me. Plus, having just taken the conflict of interest class this past week, a little bit late, the the guys that, and the gals that organize these things here, we get a bunch of dollars, but we can't keep that.
Right.
I think from the tour last year, I got something like $1,500 or $1,600. I just take that, put it into student activities, and I can write checks off of that for any of the stuff that comes up over there as well. So it's that's a pretty good deal for the kids, I think. In the last couple of trips, I've been able to write refund checks on some of them. Next, please. Okay, they have the only thing here is the global protection plan. It's not required, but I required for each of the kids to purchase that. It's less than $200. And it's a good safety amount there, I think. The $400 one just allows them to go ahead and bail on the let within 24 hours of leaving. And that traditionally does not happen. The risk-free enrollment, they have 7 days to pull out once they go ahead and enter into it. If they change their mind all of a sudden, and they get all of their money back, which is kind of nuts. That wasn't the case a few years ago. And we can go ahead and go on to the next one, if you would, please. I will make this statement on the previous one. We don't take advantage of their education, of their credits and stuff like that. There's a lot of work that goes by. The kids can do that if they want to. But each one of the kids that signs up for this trip will be given, or they'll have a selection of an assignment to do about something that we're going to see over there, so that we're a little bit smarter when we see the things, and we're not going, oh golly, look at that, as if it's all new. So we'll have them do that. It'll be a short project, but something that'll be worthwhile and that they'll enjoy, I hope. This is the cost. Oh, hit the button. There we go. Okay, I want you to take that down if you would, please, because Ella Reeves is on here and she'll tell everybody how. Won't you do that, Ella? But that's the price, and the price will go up very quickly of $200. But for early enrollment, they take $200 off. Usually I have a few seats left for the incoming freshmen. And so if we have some, we'll offer that to the new cadets that come in late August, early September. But I'm looking to go ahead and bring as many as 42 to 43 cadets. We're 98 strong. We're going to be losing 18 seniors, so they won't be eligible. But we had less kids when we went to Europe this last time, and over 50% of the unit went. So we'll see. Hopefully a lot of kids will go ahead and take advantage of it. The families, the parents seem to trust us a lot. We haven't lost any kids over there yet, so I think we're doing okay. And I think that's it. Questions?
Questions?
Not a question. I think that this is a great itinerary to some in Krakow.
Oh, my goodness.
Beautiful. There, but the kids will really love Krakow. There's a lot. But it's great.
Thank you.
Price.
The price is good. We thought about going back to Iceland again, but that place is like $5,000 for 7 days. It's a great place to go, but this will be much better, I think.
Crystal?
I didn't have a question. I just had a comment. I've been all over the world with EF, chaperoning for kids trips. And actually the last one we went on was Iceland, and, we ate 300-year-old fermented shark.
So I passed that up. No, I'm not eating that shark.
You didn't get your certificates?
No, I've got pictures of kids that are practically dying from that shark. There's no way I was eating that.
Oh, no, it's framed.
Did you go up for the eyeballs too?
I didn't do the eyeballs.
No.
I stopped at the fermented shark.
Okay.
But you're completely right. These are lifelong memories that these kids are going to have, and it's amazing. And you're in great hands with EF. Every one of our trips was phenomenal with them.
Yes,
they take care of you.
In 30 years in the Navy, I didn't see those places over there. I had to come to Quabbin to go ahead. There's no oceans over there. Anything else? Anyone else?
Not a question, but I just wanted to say that. So I went to Europe last year and I had the best time. I learned so much and it was really eye-opening, actually, especially for the concentration camp. It was extremely eye-opening and made me think about things in a way I'd never had before.
He's such a good advertisement.
She sure is.
I
Thank you,
really
Ella.
did. I had a great time.
Motion to accept the trip as stated.
As stated?
Second.
And a second, okay. We need roll call. First of all, any other questions? Seeing and hearing none, roll call. Please.
Mr. Deschamps,
Yes.
Mr. Willannon,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly,
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Ms. Muck,
Yes.
Mr. Alfonso,
Yes.
Mr. Wiggler,
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Nutter,
Yes.
Ms. LaRange,
Yes.
and Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'll see you in May of 2026 with a debrief on how the trip went.
Excellent.
I'll see you before then, but thank you very, very much. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Fantastic.
Thank you again.
Request, we'll go to the Weekend Hiking Club field trip to White Mountain National Forest, May 9th to 11th, 2025.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you again. I'm Chris Haley, high school math teacher and the hiking club advisor. I've seen you a few times over the past couple of years. We had a very successful trip in October to Vermont and Mount Tuscany. There was a lot of, the weather was perfect and hiking conditions were great. I tried to remind the students it's not always going to be like that, but significant interest in a second weekend trip this year.
Oh.
So the White Mountains, if any of you have ever been there, are exceptionally beautiful and not too far away. An area that I have a lot of experience with. So we would like to take a weekend trip, May 9th to 11th. This time we're going to maybe try to just add another dimension to it and stay in a Forest Service campground. What I would call car camping, right? So the vans will be parked close by with our supplies, but sleeping in a tent with a sleeping bag and that sort of thing. The campground has basic services, bathrooms and water, but not much more than that. So I think that'll be a step out of the comfort zone for some of our members. Some of our members are Boy Scouts and have lots of experience with such trips. And then, we have a few things lined up on Friday evening. I was able to contact, I've had some interaction with a guiding service in the White Mountains. So one of my friends reached out to me and will be coming to the campground, pending approval, to just make a little presentation on hiker safety, what we call leave no trace, environmental impacts and that sort of thing. He's a young guy, and I think the students will enjoy listening to his experience and the things that he's done. Weather permitting, we would take our big hike on Saturday. The conditions, will be a variable, right? Believe it or not, even in early May, there could be snow. There likely will be snow in some places in the White Mountains. So we'll have to, as we get closer to that, and I'll certainly let, folks know what our plan is. But, depending on what's available to us, we'll choose an appropriate destination. Hiking 4,000 footers, mountains over 4,000 feet in the White Mountains is kind of a badge of honor. So we would like to, if possible, climb a 4,000 footer, but we would only do that if the conditions were safe for that. So I've listed a few options on the material I sent. Mount Musalak would be the most ambitious goal. That's 10th highest in the White Mountains. It does have an alpine zone above tree line, and your first time up in that sort of environment is definitely memorable. It has incredible views. It's the westernmost big mountain, so you can see forever in a lot of directions. It's despite being a fairly tall mountain, it's a fairly easy hike in that it has a high elevation trailhead. But I have a few other destinations in mind. I would stick to what I would call well-traveled mountains and routes. Likely to have better trail conditions and, quicker access to help just in case we needed it. I'm fortunate enough to have 3 colleagues willing to give up a weekend of their time to join us as chaperones. After the fact, May is a very crowded month at the high school, so there wasn't a whole lot of options really. This was our 1 month. our one weekend. We couldn't go any sooner because of the weather concerns. But it is Mother's Day weekend, so I've cleared it with all the mothers on the trip. So hopefully I don't, ruffle any feathers with that. But, and then Sunday morning, we're going to stay on this campground is on the Kankamagus Highway, if any of you have been up there. So there, on Sunday, we thought we could hit like a waterfall. That's a short walk from the road just to see one more thing on our way out. We'll provide breakfast and dinner on the 2 nights. We'll hopefully have some traditional camp ground experiences with the fire and all that good stuff. Again, the weather cooperates with us. And then our general hope is to be back mid-afternoon, 3:00 or so on Sunday. We would be using the district vans. Again, I say this every time I'm here, but I'm eternally grateful for those which, make the trip so much more affordable for all of us. $40 is the price I have in mind, which would include the campground as well as the food. The students would be responsible for their food Saturday during the hike, as well as if we chose to stop on the way home on Sunday. But 2 dinners and 2 breakfasts will be included in that price. We'd have room for up to 16 students. I did send out an interest survey, and about 14 kids have expressed strong interest. We'll have to make sure we coordinate in terms of gear. A lot of kids do have their own tents and sleeping bags. Some students might need to borrow those, but I'm confident that we can find, just even among the faculty and staff, people that might be willing to share some gear. So I'm looking forward to it. The White Mountains are kind of my happy place. So I'm kind of excited to bring them up there and show them some of the beautiful sites that are, just about a half day's drive away.
You ever connected with the AMC? They have youth programs that you would probably be able to borrow equipment from.
Yes, and I believe it or not, I actually thought about that. I just last summer I started volunteering with the AMC, so I do have some connections there. I thought about that, depending on how much gear we need. Like the Highland Center, I'm not sure if you know where that is, not too far away, but they do have like a gear room that we could maybe utilize. So I've considered that as an option, and maybe I will reach out to them, and perhaps they can even offer some other benefits to us as well. But we'll see. Just my initial survey, only one person said that they didn't have what they needed. I've also said to them, please make sure you set this tent up. But somebody's got some tents in their garage set up for the first time, and it disintegrates with a bunch of moths flying. So we'll have a gear shakedown before we leave. But that's a good suggestion. I'll look into that a little more specifically. So.
Any other questions for Mr. Haley?
Have you considered having the students purchase the hike safe cards for New Hampshire?
That's a good question. I have one myself. I'll certainly, that's a good idea. I'll share that with the, I wait for approval before we begin the official permission slip process, but I'll put that on there. I collect the parents' emails and I share some information with them, but that's a good idea. It's, search and rescue in the White Mountains is run by the Fish and Game Administration. And for lack of a better term, these hike safe cards are kind of like an insurance. If search and rescue is ever required, they're much more likely to not charge you. I don't think we would be negligent, but it's just kind of a way of contributing to it. So it's a good thing for anybody to purchase. So I'll certainly make that as a suggestion.
Good. Anyone else?
If you need more equipment, I've got a couple tents.
That's great to hear. I appreciate
A
it.
satellite communicator.
I do have one of those too, which I always carry with me as well.
Yeah.
Most of the places where I think we'll go should have cell coverage, but I do carry that with me at all times. So
Be a chaperone?
You had one, but
I was gonna say, if anybody, and maybe a second one would be useful. Sometimes,
groups, that's I thought.
yeah, sometimes when we hiked Mount Ascutney, there was one student who, made it close to the summit, but didn't make it all the way. So I hiked back down with that student. So we often do get separated. So I might take you up on that offer. I appreciate that. That would be a nice thing to have.
Thanks, Walter. Sorry? Thank you. Thank you. That's fantastic. Would you be interested? Would you be interested in going?
No.
Sure.
Contact you.
Yeah, sure. In all seriousness, all are welcome. If anyone would ever like to join, we're going to get Miss Muhan one of these hikes. Christine Marias might come with us on one of these. Maybe not.
Or that, but.
Now, I just have a quick question.
Sure.
At the campsite, are you on platforms, access to platforms, or is it an open? You have to.
So it's dirt, but they're well used. So like, and there's staff there. So it's almost easier to set up a tent on the ground.
On the ground rather than a platform.
Get you off, but it's hard to kind of get the rain fly tight, for example. So
that's why I wanted to, yeah.
If it's pouring rain for 24 hours, what are we going to do? We'll figure out something to do. Lincoln is the closest town, and there's certainly some things we could do, but obviously we'll keep an eye on the weather. Yeah, so I mean, again, good weather always makes it easier, but it's really flat, comfortable ground. I've stayed at this campground before, and it was a nice place to stay. There's fire pits. They have firewood.
Exactly.
There's picnic tables. So again, that was part of the fun of the trip to Mount Escutney, was just some time with the students around the campfire, enjoying, just interacting with them in a different way than in math class. So
How high up are you already at your base?
So I'd have to do a little subtraction probably. I think Mount Musalak is around 4,800. The trailhead, it's about a 2,300 foot elevation gain.
Okay.
To get the two 4,000 footers that I'm considering. Mount Pierce, I don't know if anyone is familiar with the White Mountains, which is kind of the southern end of the presidential range, and gets above tree line for a little bit. Probably one of the most hiked mountains in the White Mountains, but Musalak would be great in that it's a good quarter mile. It's a true alpine.
Okay.
Zone. But yeah, both, nothing that would require what I would call difficult scrambling or, anything like that. Again, it's not going to be an easy hike, but, as long as we take our time and stick together, it's generally, shouldn't be a problem for us. So.
Thank you. Anyone else?
The problem with putting a tent, or one of the problems of putting a tent on a platform, is you don't know what's living underneath.
Well, the last time I camped was a long, long time ago. We were on a platform because it rained 2 days. So.
Well, that's a good time to have a platform. Yeah. Just to get you off the ground.
I'm telling you, 2 days of rain, that's not fun.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. So yeah.
The White Mountain trip is stated in here.
Is there a second? Okay, Dave. Okay, any further questions? Roll call.
Mr. Deschamps.
Yes.
Mr. Willian.
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain.
Yes.
Ms. Muck.
Yes.
Mr. Alfonso.
Yes.
Mr. Wiggler.
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Nutter.
Yes.
Mrs. LaRange.
Yes.
Mr. Brophy.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for that offer.
Your email is chaley.
chaley@qrsd.org. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for that suggestion.
All right, we have one more, overnight senior class trip to Camp Gontas, Lyman, New Hampshire, Sunday, June 1st, Monday, June 2nd.
Mr. Nozick is one of our senior class advisors. He's going to talk about the trip, and I believe the dates have actually adjusted to Monday, June 2nd and Tuesday, June 3rd.
Okay.
It did change on the paper that's everyone has in their folder. I think. Paper Mr. Nozick gave me, I changed the dates.
Okay.
Maybe not on the agenda, but
On the
got it.
agenda, but you
The
want it
actual
on the
paper.
agenda, it
Yeah.
will be changed to 2-3?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Nozick.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me attend this virtually. The little one at home, that's certainly a big help tonight. I'll be as brief as possible. I'm just looking, Mr. Youngberg and I are hoping to take the senior class the Monday of their last week, senior week, up to Camp Ogons in Lyman, New Hampshire. It's kind of a camp that has everything in a sense. Great lake to go swimming, kayaking, paddleboarding. They got ample space for games. They have sand for beach volleyball. hiking trails. All food is done on site. They have areas for a campfire in the evening, and we have a space to screen movies. So we're just looking to take the kids out for a night. There's a fine line between brave and stupid, and I'm not sure which side I'm on, but we think that this would be a great opportunity, great experience for them. Our class officers, President Luke Salvador, Vice President Ruby Gatulis, Treasurer Ellie Frost, and Secretary Irene Stilgaitis, amongst their classmates, have done a tremendous job over the last 4 years with fundraising. And we have a considerable amount of money, and we'd like to spend it in the best way possible, most meaningful way possible. And we're in agreement that this is it. So this is what we're hoping to do.
Clean and concise, clear and concise. Thank you for being a senior advisor. That is very noble of you, Mr. Nozick, along with your colleague. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity to bring them up there and to have that. And it's like you said, there's kayaking, there's plenty of activities to do. And there's also some hiking too.
Yep. Yeah. And so we'll have a, time during the day where they can kind of pick their activities. It'll be semi-structured. So, windows to do, they can choose X, Y, or Z, and then at the next window, move to something else. The coordinator up there, I've already spoken to. He's very flexible with what we can do, what we can use. He'll have staff on site. As I said, they'll handle all the food preparation there. It's a beautiful place. Little disclosure: it is where I got married, so I do know it, and it's a great place. So we took them to the inner workings of a fine city of New York in the fall, and so bringing them into the woods, I think, would be a nice bookends for their senior year.
Nice.
Chris, were you the one who wrote this proposal?
Depends. What's the question?
That's not language. It's like, the rustic outdoor nature. I mean, very nice, very accepting, except I don't think I would have written a night of adventure in a campground should have no concerns. I might be pushing it there. But well done.
Thank you.
You're going up by bus?
Yes.
Yes.
A bus? Okay, not vans.
No, we believe there are going to be too many of them for the bands. Yeah.
Okay.
Motion to accept is stated.
All right. And second again from Dave. Any further comments, questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Deschamps?
Yes.
Mr. Willannon?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Muck?
Yes.
Mr. Alfonso?
Yes.
Mr. Wiggler?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Ms. LaRange?
Yes.
Chairman Brophy?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Nozick.
Thank you for the approval and the time. And if anybody would like to join us to chaperone, feel free to reach out and email me.
That's good.
Should be fun.
Hold your breath. Oh, Walter's gonna be, so one of us have to. Good, thank you. We'll go back to the agenda. This consent agenda in your packet and in your access on the computer is the approval minutes for January 9th, 2025 school committee meeting. Second. Any further questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Deschamps, you seconded?
Yes, they did.
Mr. Deschamps?
Yes.
Mr. Willannon?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Muck?
Yes.
Mr. Alfonso?
Yes.
Mr. Wiggler?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Ms. LaRange?
Abstain.
And Mr. Brophy?
Yes. Thank you. I know we don't have any students because we know we had snow day today and it's a lousy evening as well. But I think Ella's here, correct?
It's no
Looks
longer
like she had to log off
Logged off?
perhaps.
Okay. I wanted to make a comment, but I'm going to turn over to Deb. Deb, did you want to make a comment about Ella?
I just wanted to congratulate her. I don't know if you've read the report yet, but she won the 100 butterfly and breaststroke in the Mid-Watch League Championship last week at Fantasclub. So this, in the director's report, Mr. Myville had included that and put a nice picture, so
We wanted to,
next meeting, we'll have to remember to congratulate.
we wanted to say
Pretty
something.
amazing. We
Good
were
for
just
her.
talking about her swimming and yeah.
But I wanted to be able to congratulate her. My daughter was on the team with them, so I got to see her swim.
Oh,
All right, you remember next meeting.
okay. Administrative reports, superintendent of schools.
So we are about midway tomorrow, I believe, will be our 100th day. It was supposed to be today. Is that right, admin? Nope, not yet. I have it wrong.
We celebrated it yesterday. It was our 100th day.
Oh, yesterday. Got it. So we're, a little over halfway through the year. So what is in your director's reports this month is a whole lot of data that we wanted to share with you. So part of this is just so that you can see where we are at with our district goals. So we're just going to highlight a few things and you can take time to digest it. And if you have any questions, let us know. But we did our family parent survey. Recently, we had 238 respondents, which was we were very pleased with that number. And it was pretty evenly distributed. Usually, we will always see a little bit more elementary families respond than middle high school, but we have 44% middle high school families and 56% split between elementary and post-grad. And you can see the results there. One thing that I want to highlight is actually the last piece of data there. The 83% agreed that they were satisfied or highly satisfied with the quality of education being provided. The last time we gave this survey in 2023, our number was at 68%. So we're really happy with that growth. That being said, there are areas in here that we're still going to look at. One of the next steps off of this survey is we have a district-wide newsletter, which will be distributed to all of our families. And we are going to begin a superintendent parent advisory council. So I will review some of this data with our families and we'll look for a team to get together. Some of our administrators will also sit on the committee. And then we'll identify some action steps that we can take to further engage our parents and families. Overall, the feedback was really great. It's when you're reviewing survey results, it's always sort of important to remind yourself that you had over 200 people respond. And to each question, you might have about 20 comments. But sometimes you can perseverate on those comments and just sort of say, what can we do differently? So there were some really positive comments and there are definitely some comments where we have some things that we should think about and areas where we need to grow. So we'll be addressing that through this advisory council. We'll begin that hopefully in March. We did just also complete our winter SEL survey with our students. Ms. St. George will talk a little bit more about that. However, we were using a platform called Panorama. And our Panorama platform, we're not going to continue with because it's $30,000 a year. And we decided that we needed to cut that out of the budget. It was just sort of too expensive for the surveys that we're using it for. So our participation in that survey is not as strong as it had been in previous years, but she'll share those results with you. And then I don't know if you've gotten to see the Barry Gazette, but we did start a new emergency safety management program for our students. We had 36 students, grades 10 to 12. I think I talked about this last month, sign up. I had the opportunity to go and see the class. It was amazing. The kids were so excited. And so many of them shared that they're thinking about this area as a career. And so they found it so helpful to be able to go through the process to learn CPR, to get certified. And one of our students, who is actually an intern of the new Braintree fire chief, came and saw the program firsthand too. And she said, what I do with my internship is just sort of like a step above this. So we're hoping that if these students are interested, that our emergency service departments will also take our students on for internships when they're ready for that. And we see that as a real win-win. So we're thankful for that. If you had the opportunity to attend our budget subcommittee meeting, we are all in. We've started planning for our language-based program. This is a program for students who have who struggle to learn to read. We're going to begin with our grades 3 to 5 program grade levels. We also are planning for an alternative learning program. We have an upcoming career day on March 6th at the middle high school. I want to mention this to all of you because this is a great opportunity. So basically it's set up a little bit like a career fair. So many of our partners will come in like Pine Acres, and they're looking for students to work for the summer. So they'll come in, set up, and they're sort of looking for students. But we also love to have people come in and just say, here's a future career. So I'm a physical therapist. This is what I did for school. Here are the important things you need to know. If you're interested and good at these things, you might want to consider physical therapy as a career. So we are really looking for people to come and set up a table and just meet our kids and tell them a little bit about their careers and any opportunities. So if any of you are interested and available, Mr. Devine heads up this event. We'd love to have you. I think it's always interesting that we have so many people within our own community that do some really interesting and amazing work that our students don't even think about as a possibility for them. So if that's something you're interested in, we'd love to have you. If you know someone intriguing and interesting, please send them our way and we'll get them set up in our career fair. And the last thing I just want to say is we will share our academic progress updates with you next month. This morning, I had a legislative breakfast with all the Worcester County Superintendent Association. Unfortunately, due to the snow, our legislators were not in attendance. They did a really nice job creating a video. Quabbin was featured. We gave them some footage of showing an overview of sort of what makes up Worcester County. They shared a lot of data around our student performance, different things like that. There will be more opportunities to engage with our legislators as we're moving through the budget process and we're trying to advocate for some different funding, so on and so forth. Our regional workshop is up and coming, so those dates are in there for you. And then just a few other important dates. The kids are running a blood drive. So our NHS is running a blood drive. They'd love for you all to come. And then we're in sort of our band choral orchestra season where they have all their festivals coming up. Any questions on my section?
I wanted to call out on the survey.
Please.
95% agreed communication was meeting the standards or above at district level.
Yes.
That was a big concern in the past. 95% is pretty good, Superintendent. Good job.
Well, I think, kudos to our administrators because we've all really tried to have a focus on communication and to increase our communication. So I think the survey says that what we're doing is enhancing that communication. So thanks for recognizing that.
Joe?
Yeah, question regarding the survey results, both the STEM parent teacher there and the as well as the SEL. How do these numbers pair against some of our surrounding school districts? Some of the numbers that I see are a bit concerning, but again, without having a benchmark to be able to compare them against, I'm not sure if that's.
So our SEL data has a national comparison. This survey here does not, so I couldn't speak to that. But our SEL data does do, it is it allows for comparison. It's one of the reasons why we selected the platform and we used it, because we wanted to know how we were doing. And I would say our results are probably on par with that, but I would want to go back in and check. I'm happy to report that out to you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
So we can say for sure.
Be good to see what the bench.
Yep, that's great.
I just wanted to thank you for the commitment to doing a language-based program. That's definitely something that my own child would have benefited greatly from if it was available only a few years ago. So thank you much for that type of commitment to that as well.
Yeah, and I really want to give a shout out to Jill Langlois, our new Director of Student Support, and all of our administrators as well, because, we have had a lot of discussions about wanting to do this really well in the same way that when we started our autism classrooms, we felt like we did a really nice job and we were able to transition to district-based programs. So Jill has done a lot of work thinking about who do we want to be our partners in these programs and what is this going to look like? And now the hard work of really deciding, we've got sort of quite a list of students who might benefit from this program. So the hard work of really selecting students for the program is going to come next. And I just want to be really clear. It is not that we don't need a language-based program at our middle school. We just really felt like to do it well, we wanted to focus on grades 3 to 5 and then grow it up to middle school. So,
and I would say that the data behind some of the science of reading and
sure.
as well supports that catching them earlier is better for the long term as well. So
yeah.
Anyone else? I just want to say again, thank you for continued communication and surveys and being available. And as Deb mentioned, the 95% agreed communication and above at the district level. And as you see the other pieces you mentioned, that some of the data or information that was revealed, like any other good organization, we look at the strengths and needs of how we better ourselves. So, and I know you said you had perspectives to look at.
If you want to know where I've lost sleep. So, it's always like what ruminates with me, but I think one of the most interesting areas, and it might surprise you because it's not that the percentage is low, but one of the most interesting comment areas that we had was around our high expectations for learning. And so there were several comments, and we've talked about this here, and we know we have a need for this around, sometimes we need other programs for students who may not be achieving at that same level. And so that is really, I think, one of the areas that we will focus on in that parent advisory group is just thinking about how do we make sure we're serving all of our students and holding high expectations for all of them.
All right.
Okay. And then next you have Ms. St. George's report. Again, it's mostly data. She added in a lot of comments there. If there's any questions that you have for her, she is online. Any questions on the SEL survey? Sure.
Well, I think this one is, like Joe alluded to, more concerning because this is our students sitting in the seats, and what they're reporting out is kind of concerning with those numbers. So what's the plan moving forward?
I believe that, no, I think
committee.
Ms. St. George has some definite next steps that we've talked about.
So looking at the data, two of the areas that I would say are that we scored the lowest in that we can really kind of focus in on our school engagement and school mindset. And so when we look at the questions that are in each of those categories, we can really break it down to see kind of where the areas that we need to focus on with our students so that they are engaged in school, they are engaged in their classes, and that their mindset can also, we want to shift their mindset so that they believe that they can increase their grades in school by putting forth more effort, and that they can improve their behavior in school based on the decisions that they make. So we do have a new curriculum that is mentioned here, especially at the middle high school. We're going to pair with Wayfinder. It is an online platform that provides some social emotional lessons for our students. And what I really like about this new curriculum that we will be starting to use at the middle high school is that you can really break it down by grade level. So grade 6 through 12. There are hundreds of lessons and activities that are included in there that really tailor to a lot of the topics that are listed in the survey. And so as we start to dig through our data with our admin team and with our teachers, we can really think about what are some of the lessons that we can teach our students so that they can start to build these skills and we can increase those scores. Same thing with elementary. We have second step curriculum, along with really looking in and digging into the data with our teachers. I know that I've done that in the past when I was at Hardwick. We would look at all of these topics and see what were some of the strengths that emerged, what were some of the areas of weakness, and then what can we do as a staff to really help change these percentages and really support our students so that they are happy when they come to school, they feel like they belong, they are putting forth, you know, a lot of effort in their classes and really want to do well. So I definitely think that there's work that we can do to improve in these areas, and we're going to use the curriculum that we have through discussions with our staff and get that moving in a more positive direction.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
You know, some of these, reading more into not the numbers, but commentary. You know, you have to wonder how much social media comes into play in all this. And I know we're doing, you know, things with the cell phones and putting them away, but you know, how much of this could be going on even after school where we can't control. I'm not trying to bail anybody out. I'm just saying is the impact, I think, it was so great on some of this stuff that it's just difficult to get a handle on. I mean, you know, you read articles about 12, 13, 14-year-old kids and how they're essentially being blackmailed over social media. Some are from, you know, fellow school members and others aren't. And you get the whole AI thing coming on top of stuff. And I mean, for us, I think it's just something that's difficult to get a handle on. I mean, you know, it would revolve essentially around a culture change or a culture approach, which would take a number of years. I mean, none of us, when we're sitting here, have really gone through that. I never went through, you know, I mean, we all had our problems maybe in school, you know, elementary, high school, et cetera. We didn't have social media to deal with. Telephone calls were our biggest thing. And here these kids, I mean, they're being bombarded with some of this stuff. And it's tough for parents to control. It's tough for us to control. I just, you know, you read about the words bullying and being nicer to each other, et cetera. I just wonder how much that's a reflection of just stuff that's going on through the cell phones. I don't know.
Are we looking at engagement and mindset in just an academic kind of way? Or are we looking at that engagement and mindset, not necessarily, you know, I can do this academically, but I can treat people well, or I can speak up for myself, or I can seek out help? Because I think that is really where we're falling. I think that, you know, students, especially in that 6th grade, they come out of the elementary school where there's such a community, and then they hit that middle school and it completely shifts and changes. And some of it is social development and some of it is cultural. Some of it right now is our times and all of those types of things. But as a parent of a middle schooler who has watched my own daughter become pretty disengaged in her mindset around school, I would hope also that we were looking at some of those things, because
it asks all those questions. So all of those types of questions, it's not just academic based. I can do hard things. You I know where to find support. That's all part of the survey. So it does feed into that for sure.
And our response is going to be to build some more of those skills as opposed to just the academic in the classroom.
100%.
Yep. I would also say in the past, we've done quite a bit of work with our students around growth mindset. So I definitely think that we could bring that back again and bring that back to the forefront, because some of the questions that are on here, how much can you increase the effort you give in school? How much can you improve your behavior in school? How much can you increase how smart you are? And then when you make a mistake on your schoolwork, how often do you ask your teacher for ways you can do better next time? So those were those 4 questions around the school mindset that they were really focusing on in this survey. And I think by bringing that growth mindset piece back into the classroom when we're talking with our students, I think will really help in that area and really get them to understand that they do have control over their learning and they can make positive changes. Sometimes I wonder, what are they thinking about when they're answering some of these questions? Do they fully understand what they're asking, especially at the more elementary level? But I definitely think that we can do some work around growth mindset. That should help.
I would like some of those. I mean, I think where my mind is I'd like some of those questions to be more geared towards, I can stand up for somebody else who is getting picked on, or I can make the kind choice here. I don't have to agree with someone, but I know that I can hold a conversation and a discussion while being respectful and not agreeing. And I mean, again, from what I have seen and some of the work that I've done with kids in other schools, I think that those things are equally, if not as important as when we focus around just the education piece or being able to do that academically.
Thank you. Joe?
So I just find one note interesting that we had a couple of people in here talking about the outings, right? The NJROTC going out to Europe. We talked about the backpacking thing. This is people getting what I would call disconnected, right, from the screens. One of the things that we just talked about was doing the survey and switching platforms and getting online surveys and how we do this. When I'm looking at some of these comments, they're about what people are doing. One of the things I've heard at the board is how we're looking at how do we bring in different services. We just talked about the emergency services and the offering, the hands-on skills in the offering, right? And what I continue to see here with my kids, the youth I work with through different organizations, it's around that hands-on piece of it. So I guess where I'm coming from on this is that while we're talking about doing more online, and I understand that technology is a big driver here in how all of us work, I'm wondering if we will see some change here while we're encouraging more programs that are more hands-on. And again, if we can do more to focus on things like that, which are less connected to the screen and more connected to the actual physical engagement. My 2 cents.
The research supports all that. So that is where we have to go, and I actually think, Lee, you were sort of alluding to this. You were like, it was the phone, right? But you had to have those physical conversations to work your differences out. Kids are not having that anymore. And so, and how do we make that up? It's by putting them in situations where they have to work together, talk things out, solve a problem, come to a solution for sure.
But they can look, I mean, adults aren't doing that either. And so the kid's looking and here's either the parent, maybe the teachers or the adults in the room. The adults are doing the same thing. They're not communicating. I mean, they're communicating, but not the way we used to communicate. I mean, so the people who should be looking up to on how to act are showing them how to act.
May see other behaviors. Exactly. Deb?
Couple of things. I'm surprised at the numbers, especially at the middle high school for the student-teacher relationship, because our staff is so dedicated. So that's kind of surprising to me. I was wondering, I think the most frequent topic I get is about lunchtime. And I noticed several comments, just listed here about lunchtime. I don't know if we can make changes to our menus at all or go back, or if we could shorten flex block a little, give them a little more time. We all need a break, but even some fresh air. Can they have 15 minutes to go outside, get, walk around the campus? Or I don't know if some of these things are possible, but yeah, disconnecting a little bit, getting some fresh air, having a little time to regroup. You're sitting in classes, and I know when I go to trainings now, I'm not used to it. I'm exhausted. It's exhausting. So if there's ways, maybe we could find a few minutes here or there just to give them a little more time so that, I gotta hurry up and eat because I gotta rush to this class because I gotta go to my locker, and there's only a few minutes. So I don't know. I think that would definitely help some of the climate also. But I know, the vaping and the bullying. My kids are all graduated now, and I don't think that story changes at school, and that's what happens. So if we can keep, trying to connect with them in some way, I think like Joe said, don't give them another online platform, maybe, some more of the going back to the social roots that we all know.
Yep.
Alicia?
I'm not saying that I need to see this at another school committee meeting, but one thing that piques my mind too is also if there is a trend between elementary, middle, and then high school, does it decline as it goes into high school? Or is it a kind of a rapid thing during middle school that they're losing connections as well? It's just something to kind of look at as well, just to see that. And definitely I don't need an immediate answer on that, but and then also, I know we've had Luke Salvador came to our policy meeting talking about some of this stuff, but if there is an opportunity to get people closer in age and not just adults talking to them about this
Yeah.
and getting some more, even if it's somebody from the high school talking to middle school students, like, hey, you can actually do this and get that connection. Because I do think at that age group, they're getting away from listening to adults because adults don't know anything and don't know our lives or anything like that. And then actually hearing from good role models in students or even someone from outside the district that's closer in age to them as well.
We do have several programs where our kids do that. We do have active bystander and upstander training for our students. We do have peer tutors that go into our middle school classrooms and work with kids on academics and different things like that. Do I think we can do more? Absolutely 100%. Do I think we should do more? Absolutely 100%. And I appreciate what you're saying about recess and finding times and opportunities. We are looking at trying to have 4 lunches next year instead of 3 lunches, to separate the kids into middle school cohorts and high school cohorts versus mixed. What I will tell you about the recesses is it's just more challenging. It's not that it's impossible. It just is something we're going to need to talk about because it's going to be a budgetary sort of impact for that supervision. But if we decide that's something we want, then we should absolutely 100% go for it. You've got my vote. You've got my vote. Olivia is, Olivia's working on that menu. And even though the kids say they want nachos, they really do love sort of some of those rice bowls and healthier things. They just don't like to admit that. So we are open to all ideas. And, I think the other thing is, please, you're never going to offend any of us when you bring these ideas forward. And if you have places that where things are working, we would love to go see them. That is probably what's most helpful to us. And I think sometimes we have to allow ourselves some grace and say, it's okay and Shelley actually has this in her report about instructional minutes, but we have to allow ourselves some grace that if we really believe, and I think we do, that a sense of belonging and having that feeling in school is going to result in greater academic achievement, then we have to allow ourselves to do those activities and not be afraid that we're not going to cover all the standards and we're not going to do well on MCAS and all of those things. And I will tell you, and I will speak for the teachers on this, that last year when I took on the role, I said to teachers, you have my permission. I want you to take the first 6 weeks to really get to know your kids. And they said to me, no one has ever said that to us before. And you're always feeling that pressure between, I've got to get them achieving at this level, and yet I want to build these real connections with these students. And we have many, many great teacher-student connections. And we will look at our data in comparison to others. And again, know that the data you're seeing today, even though we're sharing it today, is not nearly even 70% of the student body. So it's a small sampling.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything out there. It's so hard to see people if they have their hands up or anything, but I just want to say, and I know the administrators also appreciate the conversation because we feel that pressure too as school leaders. Like, you know, I think you saw at the last meeting, maybe the students were like, we win a movie day, remember? Right? And it was like, how long does that movie last? 3 hours. And everybody was like, right? Because we all live that. It's like, well, if we allow them to do this for 3 hours, what are we giving up? So anyways.
No, very good. Thank you for sharing this.
Chris Carlson has his hand
Oh,
raised.
who does?
Chris Carlson.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, I don't mind. Thank you for acknowledging me here. So like, I think going through the data, I think what doesn't always come to light, and I think Shelley started to speak to, the school mindset piece a little bit. And like one of the questions there, like the fourth one, for instance, was, as a student, when you make a mistake, how often do you ask for ways to do better the next time? So I can speak for Ruggles Lane, where 80% of our students scored in the bottom 3 categories. So the way that this survey works is a favorable response is all the time or a lot of the time. And below that is sometimes, once in a while, or almost never. So 80% of respondents at Ruggles Lane are saying that they sometimes, once in a while, or almost never ask for help. Now, again, I don't know that means that they don't necessarily care about school. I went in and I found under valuing of school question 3, which is how important is it to you to do well in your classes, and 86% of students at Ruggles Lane responded positively. So I think for me, a lot of the data that's here in the survey, we just have to kind of mine through it a little bit and start to connect the dots. I'm thinking for Ruggles Lane, if we have 86% of the kids who come in every day and they say that it's important for them to do well in their classes, but only 20% are accessing the teacher after they make a mistake, then that gives us information of how we can move forward. So, I think when you look at some of the percentages right off the top, I don't know that surveys are ever where you want them to be. But I feel like it's like just one small sample set of data, but it gives us at least some conversation starters with staff and students. And like I said, a lot of times it's looking at more than one data point contained within this set and connecting the dots a little bit on what we can do, to support students moving forward.
If I could just echo what Chris was saying about that specific question too. I mean, at the elementary level, we're teaching kids how to advocate and ask for help. And that's a skill that we're hoping to grow for them in middle school. So these kind of surveys too are interesting to look at from year to year to see what those cohorts, are they growing in those areas? And because I know that I hear our teachers and I use it all the time. Well, how could you have asked? How could you have, spoken up for yourself when situations don't go well? So again, that specific question that Chris brought up is very much a skill that we're teaching. So they wouldn't necessarily be strong at it or even recognize that they're strong at it at this point too.
well said. You know, the soft skills and the technical skills and asking kids with concrete thinking as they develop their understanding and their cognitive growth to be able to interpret what's being asked and how to answer a question. But Mr. Carlson, you made an excellent point. Connecting the dots, we're looking at data, you're taking information in, and I didn't hear any comment to say, oh, well, we're not gonna listen to this or we're gonna poo-poo it. You are looking at it from a reflective and you're looking at growth and to be able to have a culture that's not only safe, but kids can get involved to become problem solvers, to inquire, to be creative, and to do what they can do to look out for another human being, not just for themselves. So you both hit it right on the nail on the head by stating, you know, 1 point data point doesn't make it all to be, and it's a smaller sampling too, but it gives us the roadmap that you need to make some decisions that are good programming and support for kids to succeed. And parents to continue as our customers, our students and our parents as our customers to stay and be part of Quabbin Regional.
It's an extremely small sampling, but when the ad hoc group walked through all the elementaries a year or 2 years ago, I'm even trying to remember. Like I said, a small sampling, but every school, whether it was Ruggles or Hubbard, et cetera, we'd bump into kids, would be walking down. So your school committee members, the principal, teachers coming in, and these kids were like, no issues. You know, I will speak with the teacher. It's not like a teacher saying, oh, why don't you tell us what 3 times 4 is? It was like all these conversations were going on, and they were coming to us, asking us questions, and it was a give and take. And these kids, like 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, I mean, they were really good. And we saw it in every elementary, and it was really impressive to see this. You know, kids walking down the corridor, the superintendent says, oh, why, the principal said, well, why are you here? What's this? And she just turned around and started chatting. Here's what I'm doing. Miss Brown said I could go this and blah, blah, blah. Right off the bat, no issues, no like, oh my goodness, somebody, some adult is talking to me. I mean, I know it's an extremely small sample, but every school we saw, kids were just interacted just wonderfully as far as I was concerned. I mean, that was my feeling. I don't know if everybody else felt that.
It was similar when I toured the middle high school recently as well.
Yeah.
Everyone seemed engaged, and I mean, we just walked through the hallways. Obviously, there was a lot of closed doors in classrooms. I don't know what was going on in all of them, but no, there was, it would not reflect what we're talking about tonight.
Right.
That's never been the feeling when we've gone through.
Right, exactly.
In any situation.
Okay. Principal DeMaraz? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just had 1 or 2 follow-up comments from my elementary peers. At the middle high school, I would also keep in mind when students are doing this type of survey, especially the month that they're doing it in. We've got the winter season upon us. We've got grades that are closing. We have to remember, we did talk about obviously cell phone issues being problematic for children and generations. And, we cannot ignore the political climate and the economic, familial hardships that families are in. So that it's all of it really takes an impact, especially for our young adults. And so I definitely think we have work to do around some of the areas. And I actually find a lot of their comments much more eye-opening in terms of data, and some of the ideas that they have to bring more of their voice in. I appreciate some of the school committee members, your examples of offering movement for students, how we can make flex maybe a little bit different, offering those mindful breaks throughout the day, a little bit more of their student voice in their curriculum. So all of those pieces, along with a lot of the comments said from students, we need to reflect upon and see what we can do a bit differently. I just want to put that in the mindset as well. Students, young adults are taking a survey. All of these things, we are affected as adults as we open the news and sort of make sense of a lot of craziness going on in the world. And they have, between the political angle, the cell phone usage, and the economic times that our families are in. It's just a lot of stress that they're in. just want to make sure that we acknowledge that piece as well.
No problem. Well said. Okay.
Okay, so then, the remainder of
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. The remainder of the report, we have, building and grounds, technology. Stacy, is here representing our school business department, our warrants. I don't know if anyone has any questions in any of those areas. One thing that is just really important for me to let you know is we started filling out the SOI for the roof at Hardwick. We will have to, in March, have a vote on that, and the town select board will also have to have a vote on that. I was actually hoping Jenna was going to be here because I sent them an email on it last week and I haven't heard back from them. But just to put that on your radar, it would not be a project until 2026, but they're only offering it biannually. So we have to get it in this year in order to do it next year.
Van replacement?
Yep, so we had a, yep.
We wore it out already?
It's not one of the ones you're thinking about. So
all right.
it's a fan that one of our technicians uses that travels between schools. And it was really getting up there in miles, so on and so forth. So we actually used some rural school aid that we had designated for that to replace that van. We traded in the old one while we could still get some good money for it. And I believe, has it been delivered, Kevin?
We picked it up today.
Today.
Nice.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And then on Andrew's section, I just want to point out, he's got refresh cycles on there. So we've talked about this. One of the challenges coming out of COVID is we went to one devices, which blessing and a curse, as we all have talked about this evening. But one of the challenges now is keeping those devices current. So he's looking at ways to maybe help decrease some of those costs. That's in there. I just wanted to draw your attention to that. And then Jill has her special education. This is special education by the numbers. I think Mr. Alfonso has a question.
Just a couple of questions about the technology. For the security training, it says that this is self-paced and will be offered. Is this required training?
Yes.
Do
Yep.
you know what the phishing failure rate is for that training?
We are going to let Mr. Walsh speak to that.
Hold on, my camera's having a hard time starting. What was the question?
What's the phishing failure rate for the training? Do you know?
Yeah, it was shockingly low, honestly. I think the last time we did it, we only had 5 employees fall for the phishing test and only 1 employee fall for it twice.
Gotcha. And then is remedial training offered for those
It's offered
that fail the training?
instantaneously. So once they click on the link, Know Before automatically gives them a presentation of what they should have seen, what they fell for, and what to look for next time.
Thank you. And then question regarding the cameras and the network equipment.
Yep.
Are you leveraging CISA's announcement regarding the equipment that is not safe to use due to the coming out of China? Issues
so
with
all
the
of our
vulnerabilities?
Yep, our equipment is supplied, our cameras are supplied by Avigilon, which is not on that list, and all of our networking equipment comes through Aruba and HP.
Thank you. Okay.
Directors, if there's anything you want to highlight or say, feel free. And if there's any questions, they're all available. Oh, and we need to do the warrants.
Well, we'll do
Sorry.
that. Yeah, I was gonna get that.
Okay.
Any questions for Director of Student Services, Technology, or any of the building and grounds at this moment? Okay, now we'll go to the business manager. And I know I'll turn it over to the superintendent and go from there with Mrs. Scarry.
That's right. Stacy's going to present our warrants tonight.
So the warrant we presented, we have processed since the last school committee meeting that our warrant committee has approved is
the biweekly payrolls of number 15, 16, and 17, the weekly payrolls of 28, 29, 30, 31, and 32, and accounts payable of 51A, 53B, 54S, 55A, 56F, 57A, 58H, and 59B.
Done on that. And then,
To your subcommittees.
well, anything on your perspective that you would like to at this point?
Thing you want to share about the business department?
Oh, do you have to do any transfer or anything, or?
I do, but is that later? Do you want me to do it now?
We're going to do budget transfers you have on a
Oh, well, I'll do it
later.
afterwards. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Good. I just wanted to make sure I had that. Okay, so anything, we did the warrants. Now we'll go right to subcommittee reports. Audit?
Yeah, I'm looking for my. Okay, audit. So obviously he made his presentation. There were a number of things. He spent an hour with us. In the subcommittee, and a couple of things just to either highlight. Use the word fabulous 3 or 4 times when talking about our team. So, you know, Stacy and everybody else involved, once again, kudos to you guys. That was good. He said that, I don't know if he covered this before. So he said, right now we're in a very minimum bond situation. I think he said we only have like $15,000 or $16,000 in a long-term bond. So he said, obviously that's good that we don't have that much money played around with.
We have 315,000 remaining in long-term bonds. Because we have the chiller project in there as well that we just started last.
The chiller.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we have 315,000 in long-term bonds.
The chiller.
But he did not think that was a big amount.
He
Yeah.
said that was fantastic.
No, he said it was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said that Quabbin was one of the few districts who gets how to use circuit breaker.
Mhm.
He said because other schools run afoul of it, but he said year after year, you know, our money's regarding circuit breaker and pushing it ahead. For the next year, he said, yeah, you're one of the few people that know how to do this. So, you know, you got plaudits for that. He spoke and he said, when we talked about E&D a bit, because I know you brought that up, Mark, he said that last year was the first year we actually put money in to help. He said, because of 3 years, kind of the COVID years, for lack of a better term, where we were getting a lot of government funding, we utilized that so that we didn't have to get in raw B&D. So he said, once again, not a lot of people did that, but we did. So he gave us kudos for that. And the federal report, he said, he thinks that, you know, he talked about the 3.3 million that we utilized in grants, but that should go down. Our average is usually about 1.5 million. So once again, it's probably all COVID related. So that in a couple of years, he thinks it's going to go down to about 1.5 million. And then he said, I think Stacy, correct me, that under some new regulations, if our grants go under $1 million, then they're not even looked at.
Right, they're not subject to what's called the single audit. So when our grants right now, if our total federal grants are over $750,000, we have a single audit, which means you get almost like a secondary audit and you have to supply even more backup. So he's saying if that level is going to be raised to $1 million, but he still feels that we're still going to have to be subject to what's called the single audit, which means it's almost like just a secondary audit of just those grants.
But we really haven't been under $1 million for.
No, not quite some time.
It probably won't affect us.
Because it doesn't include school lunch, which obviously is what kind of brings us over in all respects.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing you just mentioned was, once again, for our people is that, you know, a lot of times I'll go in and ask for a number or what's this going on? And he said, it might take 2 or 3 days or 4 days to get to me. And I'm wondering, what's the deal? He said, I come to Quabbin. Not only do I have the answer in a half hour to an hour, but I have all the backup information that supports that answer at the same time. So, you know, year after year, we get, he kept referring to it as, you know, it gets kind of boring. And we're all sitting there saying, we like hearing this boring. This is good boring for us. So once again, kudos to our team. And, you know, I guess in the scheme of things, we're sitting too badly. Oh, the other thing he did mention, he got into the OPED. And I guess we're at what, roughly 85,000? Is that what he said?
Yes, that's how much we have, yeah.
Right, and Walter had asked the question of what what we're getting, you know, per year in our investments. I guess it was around 10, 11, 12,000. So he said, in the scheme of, all the monies in OPED, the 80,000, one might say it's a small amount, but we're actually doing more than a lot of other people are doing, number one. And he said, if you put in 10,000 a year and if you can generate about 10,000, the way we're doing it now, so if it comes to 20,000 a year, he said, that's kind of a comfortable thing to do right now. So, he felt pretty good about that. He said, you could throw it into stocks and say the S&P made 35% and be patting yourself on the back. If the market crashes next year, you're not going to be patting yourself on the back. So, all in all, it was a really, as usual, a really good audit. Good. And anybody else that I missed?
I think you said we were getting above 9% return on investment.
Right, yeah.
So I mean, I think that's pretty good for, because you want to be conservative, I think so. Pretty good.
Any further questions for Lee? Because we'll have a acceptance of the FY 24 audit report.
Right, so moved.
So moved. Second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Deschamps.
Yes.
Mr. Willannon.
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain.
Yes.
Ms. Muck.
Yes.
Mr. Alfonso.
Yes.
Mr. Wiggler.
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Nutter.
Yes.
Ms. LaRange.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Okay.
Central, let's see, no, collective bargaining. Oh, anything else, Lee?
Nope.
Okay, collective bargaining. Oh, budget, sorry. My fault, budget.
Okay, good evening, couple meetings ago, folks received a schedule for our budget meetings for this coming year. And the fact of the matter is, we did have a very preliminary meeting in January, and our intent was actually to have another meeting yesterday and then present the budget that we agreed upon yesterday to you folks tonight. And I think that's going to be delayed. Well, I know it's going to be delayed, and our next budget meeting will be on the 6th of March. Again, due to the transition from Julia leaving, and Cheryl coming on board, Cheryl said that the first meeting on the 28th was very preliminary. Is that in the drive, the actual?
Yes, the presentation. Yeah.
So there should be a presentation in there, but again, it really needs some additional work. A couple comments that I really wanted to make on what was presented on the 28th. Superintendent presented that, there are significant challenges, facing the budget. Resident enrollment with minimum aid at only $75 per student, places the district. Resident enrollment went down by roughly, 44 students from last October. So $75 per student is really not going to help us a whole lot going forward. I also listened to I went to the Zoom meeting the other day, which, what was he wearing? No, but we had a Zoom meeting the other day where they talked a lot about budget. And the only thing that really seemed positive was that we may wind up with 100% in transportation. See, that's what he was saying. That was one of the positives on this. Believe them.
Optimism is good.
Yes.
That's my first mistake, right? Hiring issues, again, present us a significant problem due to increases in substitute costs, especially true in the area of special education. Now, what we're trying to do is really bring special education back in-house to a large extent. And what that's going to encounter is probably a little bit of additional funding up front to save a whole bunch of funding, the tuition costs and, cost, for coursework that, students attend off-site. Hopefully we can bring that back in-house. This time, again, very preliminary. Our 26 preliminary budget comes in at $42,482,000, which represents an increase of $2,800,000 or 7.09%. We all realize that that translates into assessments. There are going to be some very significant concerns in all of the towns. Barry and Hubbardston. We talked a little bit about Hubbardston. Now, going forward, it's projected by 2030, both actual population and student enrollment in Hubbardston will basically surpass the town of Barry. I never thought in a million years that would happen. Okay, again, the administration is still meeting with the cost center managers. And hopefully by, I believe it was the 6th of March, we will have a more detailed information relative to some costs, contract negotiations, building and ground costs, heating oil, retired teachers' health insurance, and business insurances. Hopefully we have those numbers nailed down. We had hoped to have them last night, but Cheryl was sick. And due to the transition, I fully realize how we fell a little bit behind. Hopefully, we're going to try and get out by the middle of March, the preliminary budget that can go to hearing, and then the towns will start their meetings in April and May, and everything should move forward on that. But it's going to be a year where we're really going to have to watch costs going forward. Yeah, nobody really mentioned, he alluded to it on a Zoom call that, due to what's happening in Washington right now, there may be some reductions which we have no clue about right now. I mean, just some things. I saw something today on cutting, I went to the Doge site, which was bizarre. But cutting on Zoom costs, several $1 million in Zoom costs. Now, does any of that stuff trickle down to us? I mean, at some point it must from the Federal Department of Education. So I think we're really may have some unexpected changes this year.
Yeah, we've already had a look through some federal grants. So not our Title I grants, not our special education grants, but some of our more competitive grants have been under review. Also, I heard today that the state is very worried. So if you think about how it impacts us, it's going to potentially impact our funding from the state, which the governor was very cautious in her budget, I would say. She did not give a lot to schools. And, now you have to wonder if that's part of what they're worried about. But I heard through the grapevine today that there was, the governor basically said, we need to sort of prepare if we have to make some layoffs. So they're very worried about things. I think that we were hopeful. Some of the schools getting together, working together to advocate for increased funding. But if there's nothing there for us to get, then we're all going to have to be making a lot of really, really difficult decisions for sure.
Joe? So a question mark around the budget. I think every year, this is my first year here, but every year in Hubbardston, I've heard, the costs continue to go up, right? And we look at all the other town issues that we have, and I think Barry faces the same, and a number of other towns I'm sure face the same. But what I just heard you say is that the number of students has gone down. I question the increases I saw, the projections where they go up, due to, again, some of the other economic issues that are at play right here for our towns and the changes in the work culture, the work from home culture that are currently going on, not just at the federal government, but in industry. So I guess my question is, when we look at the rise in the cost per student, that might be higher than the 7% that you said because of the reduction in students. And then there's going to be a question coming, obviously, which is what's the school system doing to contain costs or cut costs? So do we know what's changed between last year and this year to try to reduce spend?
So for this year's budget from the year before, we reduced by 15.7 positions. And so I think what Mark is alluding to is that that's the work we need to do right now, is these are our preliminary numbers. And then we really have to go in and say, where can we refine even more? And like I said, we're going to have to make some hard decisions because it might be cutting programs or different things like that. The majority of our budget is made up of staffing costs. That's true for all school districts, honestly. And so there are increasing costs that have impacted this budget that, you know, we can't do anything about. So then the only thing we can do is really look for efficiencies, and we're trying to do that. And I think to the point about special education, you know, it may cost us a little bit of money to start these programs this year, but we believe over the long term, it's going to save us money. Jill has done an amazing job already bringing some of our students back to our in-district programming. We're really excited. One of the things I did yesterday or today is we did an outline of all of our in-district programs that we currently have. And I sent it to superintendents who were within a 30-minute drive from us. And we offered them opportunities to tuition their students in at what would be a much reduced cost from sending them out to some of the other placements that we have where we had slots available. So we're thinking of all of those things to try to help have a more realistic budget. We know it's going to be really difficult for our towns and communities. And having our own programs and doing them well, I wouldn't put this out. So I just want to state this. I would not put our programs out to other schools and other superintendents unless I felt really, really secure in the programming that we're offering our students. And so, you know, many of them have programs of their own. They may not be interested, but I had a superintendent say to me today, just today, sent the email yesterday, and he said, I want to talk to you about that. If numbers decrease, it may not be worth people keeping their own programs, and this could offer an opportunity. So I don't know what will come of it, but we really are trying to be creative.
Just a couple of quick comments. Joe, I think the average cost per student in this district is somewhere around $18,000. Yeah, it falls in line pretty much with all the other communities in our area. Also, it's the further east you go, we're talking about $2,000,
$27,000.
$30,000 per student. I think I even saw $32,000 per student. So, yeah, that's the current situation. I don't really think that spending per student is out of line. Second thing is State Department of Education and Revenue, when they get together and they put the numbers together in the formula, they really think that Hubbardston has the ability to pay a whole lot more than it does. Okay, and that's been going on for several years. Okay, and I realize we're in the community, we hear all the time from both the constituents in the community and you know, the town administrators, how, you know, we really have to do more in refining our budget. But the bottom line is, they know a 2.5 vote won't fly, probably won't fly. And there are a lot of elderly folks in town who an increase of $50 in their tax bill is significant. I'm sure other towns have the same situation. The last thing is, you know, I think the cost center managers, whether they're principals or administrators, you know, whether you're in a good year or a bad year, you ought to have a good idea if you were told you had to cut 5% or you had to cut 10%, where are you going to do it? I mean, that's what they do in the private sector. I mean, you know, there are plans for it. If we have a reduction, these the programs are vulnerable. Maybe we're going to have to take a hard look at them. So that's what they're doing now. And hopefully we'll have some good results on March 6th.
Deb?
Can I just make a couple comments? We do have declining enrollment. However, we have the same number of buildings. So we do try to get creative. We rent classrooms to CAPS Collaborative. We try to partner. We try to do those kind of things. So that's one issue, right? We still have to heat them all. We still have to take care of all these buildings, but they have less students in them. So we do try to come up with these programs and things and be as efficient as we can. That's part of the problem. Another issue the school district faces is we have a lot of mandates. If a family of 30 special ed kids moved in, we have to educate them. And we have to figure out the funding later, right? So there's a lot of things that are not within our control. And historically, and over the past 20 years, the portion that the state and the towns have paid has completely shifted a 60-40. The towns now absorb 60% of the school budget and the state pays the 40. So those are some of just kind of the basic drivers. But what's really broken is the funding formula.
Correct.
I mean, it doesn't work for what, 230 cities and towns. We're in hold harmless debt. The services, the rural areas face challenges. East of 495 does not. So it's kind of this vicious cycle that we're always against each other. And it's really easy to defend our budget when an auditor comes in year after year. If we were misappropriating or misspending our funds, we would not get audited. That's something that we can really kind of lean back on. Our finance administration, we really do care and really do try to be as efficient and spend our money as wisely and drive it to the students. So it's a tough situation with the town side and, being a regional school district. So I'm looking, we're all here to learn from each other and answer questions. So, there's a lot of new members, so.
And just one other comment or two about the administration, with the going after grants and the amount of money that we've been successful at, that has allowed programming and the funding to occur and not be put into the budget as well. So that's another perspective that we do. And then when we have to make an adjustment and we take it from school choice and we lower those assessments. So we really do. And then you're right. Then you get the transportation costs increase, you get the insurance costs. So we are trying to do not only efficient, but good budgeting. And the leadership of Mark and the administration has done a good job on that. But you're right. We hear that regardless of where we go. And we are the big nut. And the big nut gets looked at and wants to get chipped away at. And so I want to be able to defend our budget, but at the same time, it's like Mark saying, hey, wait a minute. If we have to go 5%, 10% at a cost center, they have to do their job. And then here we are hiring the superintendent to be able to manage her team to do that. But we're the direction policy people too. So you're right. We hear that as well. And the $18,000, I thought it was closer to 16, but it's about 18,000 now per pupil. And we're in the lower end of, or right at the median or something, correct?
Yep.
So I hope that it's just additional stuff that we talk about. What's that?
18,822.
18,800. But one thing I liked the other night when I was there a couple weeks ago was the amount of money of grants that this district has been good at getting. It's been phenomenal. Because if we didn't have that money, we'd be putting it in the budget and trying to get it that way, and it would be even more. So it does work as best as we can, Joe, to do those efficiency pieces.
We also have the E&D problem this year. I mean, we don't have a lot of E&D resources. The auditors recommend what, 4 to 5%?
Right.
Keep an E&D for a crisis. And we're down to what, 2% or something?
Yep.
Less
1.5%, 2%, exactly. Okay, thank you, Mark. Collective bargaining?
We'll be talking about it in executive session, but
And then come out?
yeah, the service people have agreed to the tentative agreement, so we'll be presenting their proposal at the executive session.
We'll come out and share it with the community as well. Okay. Is there anything else with any other groups at
No,
this time?
not at this point, no.
Okay. Policy review and reform?
Yeah, I'm speaking for Dr. Allen, who is not here today, obviously. So we had two topics. The first one was a me and 30 presentation by Luke Salvador, Senior, and he did such a great job. No, really, he did that. I want to defer till next month because I'd like him to make a presentation. He couldn't do it today. I mean, if I presented for him, it would be weak imputing. And this was just awesome. So we'll defer that one. So the only other thing we have to discuss is the QRSD competency determination. So I think before I motion it in, Colleen, maybe tell us what it is.
Well, it's not a policy, so this is, it doesn't have to be, we don't have to make a motion for it to become a policy. It's going into our handbook. So basically, since the inception of MCAS has always been designated as the way that students would show competency as high school students. And so the vote that was taken in the fall was to remove MCAS as a competency determination. It does not mean MCAS is going away. It does not mean that students won't continue to take MCAS. But what they said was schools can now determine what their measure for competency determination is going to be. And I think I shared this early on in the year that I had met with Secretary of Education Tutwiler, and he said, you know, if we were more prepared for this to happen at the state level, we would have just told all schools they need to follow Mass Core. And I thought, great, because we already do. So basically, many schools in the state of Massachusetts follow the Mass Core frameworks, which is you have to have 4 years of ELA, 4 years of math, so on and so forth. So if you look at the competency determination, what the first, we probably should have put these in different order, but I'm going to talk about option 2 first. So basically, what MCAS assessed was students' ability to show competency at the 10th grade standards for ELA, math, and science. They were assessed in either biology, physics, or they could do engineering. So what our competency determination is going to say, and most students will be able to complete this no problem, is, I know, I feel like the roof is going to come off. I'm just,
Never been this loud.
can you
here
guys hear
before.
that at home? It's so windy here.
Almost sounds like thunder.
So basically, students have to pass all of our graduation requirements, which is Mass Core requirements. And what the competency determination says is that students must pass the 10th grade level of the courses. So right in the middle, it says receive a passing grade in the equivalent of a grade 10 English course or other comparable courses as approved by the high school principal. Same thing for the math courses. You know, we now have math integrated 2 as our 10th grade, and also for the science courses. So this is how the majority of our students will gain their graduation requirements and show competency. However, we do have a subset of students who maybe don't take those same 10th grade classes because they might be our life skills students. And in the past, they've been able to pass MCAS by the time they reach 12th grade, many of them, and then they receive a regular diploma. So we wanted to just think about what that could look like for them because they're not following that same trajectory of 9th grade math, 10th grade math. They're taking, in some ways, maybe a slower approach to get to those 10th grade standards. So option 1 will serve those students. They can still show competency on the MCAS and receive their diploma because they've taken the 4 years of math. It just may not be these particular math courses. So that's really what competency determination is all about. The other thing I want to say about it is that the governor is forming a task force to make recommendations for competency determination for the state of Massachusetts. So it's all consistent. So I'm thinking we're probably going to live this for maybe a year, maybe 2, and then we're going to get something else from the state. But I just want to, that's what it is. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. On the back, we do offer a certificate of attainment for some of our students have more significant disabilities. Most of our students who enter into post-grad maybe have received a certificate of attainment. So that's what we are proposing with your sort of approval to put into our handbook.
So I remember, so we had the discussion at subcommittee meeting, so whether these were actually, you could still do one of these as an option, as opposed to.
Well,
part of our discussion was, gee, you really need to do option 2, but.
Well, you have to do option 2, because the language is around passing those 10th grade standards. So that's what option 2 calls out. It is our graduation requirement, but specifically you have to have passed these 10th grade courses, which I know you're thinking in your mind, well, wouldn't everybody have had to have passed those 10th grade courses? But then we go to the subset of students who maybe aren't taking that same trajectory because they have different needs, and they're taking maybe a slower sort of, they may not complete 1 year of 10th grade in a year and pass that year of 10th grade. Does that make sense?
No, I understand what you're
Okay.
saying, but I'm just wondering, so based on option 1, so if I have a kid in the 10th grade and he gets everything to MCAS, he gets all his scores correctly MCAS wise, or he has hit them because our seniors have taken 10th grade MCAS already, right? Okay.
Yep. Mhm.
So he passed MCAS, right?
Yes.
So I'm saying that if he's done that, he doesn't have to look at option 2 or the requirements under option 2.
No, what they have to look at are our graduation requirements. So,
Right.
and
Which
we have
is
many
school committee.
students right now who have passed MCAS this year, and this applies to all of them, and we actually have to go backwards. So we've actually been reviewing students who came before our graduating class of 2025, because we can now offer them that if they passed all the coursework and they've passed these courses, we can offer them a diploma now. So I'm sorry, I got off tangent and I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. What'd you ask me?
I'm just saying, if you come under option 1.
Yes.
And you do.
Oh, you have to
you're
fulfill
good to-
the,
Option 2 doesn't mean anything to you.
well, if you want your diploma, you still have to pass all of our graduation requirements, which are, you have to have 4 years of
No, I
math.
understand all
Yeah.
that. That's in the handbook. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess my question is, why are we doing this?
Because the
that's my
state says
basic
we
question.
have to.
Does the state really say we have to?
Yes.
Do we have to do it in this language?
No, schools could choose whatever they wanted to do. However, I will tell you
If you want.
that the majority of schools, especially schools that follow the Mass Core, are doing exactly this. So Purnima could talk a little bit about it, but basically after reviewing what folks were, sharing that they were going to do, her team looked over the options and felt that this was very manageable. It's very aligned with what we've already done.
Okay, so let me flip it again now. So let's say I don't make it under option 1, so I failed MCAS.
Yeah.
So when I look at option 2, if I'm passing all my grades under the 4 English, 4 math, 3 social, blah, 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 I still have to hit these bullets?
You have to have passed them. You have to have passed your courses.
Right, but these 3, you specify certain courses within these bullets.
Because the state says we have to call out the equivalent of the 10th grade
Okay,
standards.
and that's what these bullets represent.
Yes, yeah. I'm sorry if I didn't
No, that's
explain
okay.
that well.
I'm just trying to make sure I understand all this.
Yeah.
So do we need the paragraph that has all the state language, which I think is really horrible? I mean, it really is. It talks about mastery. If we have a kid pass with a D+, are we saying, according to this, they have mastery over the subject? I mean, that's not what we're saying, but I mean, that's what the state language is saying. The other thing is, it's when you get to that 5th sentence there, it says, by satisfactorily completing coursework that has been certified by the student's district. as showing mastery of skills. It's the kid that's showing mastery of skills, not how we write the course schedule up. I mean, that doesn't even make sense to me.
I think what it's saying is that it's certified to have met the 10th grade standards. It's talking about the coursework being sort of meeting the standards in that case. And so the language was pulled because that was the language that the state sort of set forth for us to follow. So most schools are keeping it in. Is anyone going to know if it's not there? Probably not. But it does set the rationale, if you will.
Question, has this gone through legal review?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And again, we do know that the state is not only putting a committee together, the legislature will also have to come in to rule into this. Because remember, the November only took out MCAS as a requirement to graduate. You can still have MCAS in this, but you still have to go through your course of study. We as a school committee, you have called the graduation requirements. School committee, those are 350 requirements. That's why there's a push to say, let's not get into portfolios, because you could have willy-nilly. I'm not knocking teachers. I was education 39 years, but you can have differences. And the question was that you had a minimum that people had a 10th grade education. That's what that was. This new ruling, the legislature is going to have to get in to deal with some language with this. And then what is it going to look like? But this is what 99% of districts are going to be doing. And the portfolio perspective that was being pushed on certain avenues is kind of retreated from other parts because it takes about 3 hours for an alternative portfolio on the special ed. So if you had portfolio, if you were a district as a school committee, we said, okay, let's have 10th grade portfolios all over the place and have teams evaluate on that. Where's the standard? How's that going to be? So I commend, you do have to come up in the handbook with some type of a accommodation or statement of how you graduate from Quabbin, because the MCAS requirement is gone.
Determination is.
It's gone, exactly.
Right.
And they call it the competency determination.
Right.
Could we have said we still want to use the MCAS?
We could have.
Yes, you can.
So it's interesting that you asked that, Peggy, because we absolutely could have. And initially, we weren't going to include it in
Right.
here. But there's so much parental pushback around that. And I sort of feel that there was a lot of misinformation out at the time of the vote around MCAS. People really think MCAS is gone and students don't have to take it anymore,
Right.
and so on and so forth. So a lot of schools are hesitant to put it in there. But as soon as we talk about, well, what do we do for the kids who, you know, aren't taking sort of that traditional grade 10 math course and they're getting it more over time, it is an option that we think, do we think a lot of students are going to qualify through the MCAS? Not a high percentage. Most of our students are going to have no trouble with the coursework aspect of this, but we just felt like in order to give our kids diplomas, we really wanted to have that option in there. And there may be parents who say, no, that, you know, my child is not going to take the MCAS. We talked about a portfolio, and we also talked about all the rationale around having to create and evaluate and continue that work, and that this felt like, you know, we've had success with it. We also reviewed our grades. So to be perfectly clear, you know, one thing I was worried about was like, do our passing rates match students performing and meeting the standards for MCAS? And so we wanted to look at that to make sure that there wasn't a discrepancy. And so the team has done that, and we feel like that's very in line with what's happening in our courses.
Yep, good. No, I just wanted to make sure I understood it. I'm gonna vote one way or the other. I'm sure I know what I vote. Okay, so make a motion to accept the QRSD comprehensive determination stated on page 1 and 2 of the document.
Okay, second,
Second.
Dave?
The only thing I'll say is that I think you're being very unrealistic to think the state is going to come up with something in a year.
Well, maybe.
Yeah,
You
I'd
might
say
be right.
within 2.
You might be right.
I'd say within 2, yeah, I agree with you on a year.
They'll pay 100% of the transportation and they'll do this.
Well, we know what they're going to propose, and they're going to propose everything that's outlined in option 2. They're going to propose that. But the challenge that they're going to have with implementing that is for some districts, that's going to be an increase to budgets because they may not offer some of those courses and they may not already have this requirement in place. So that's why it's probably going to take a lot longer than, just a couple of years for sure.
And then just think about from a collective bargaining perspective, that if you create portfolios and teams and hours, and you're going to hear that's a change and all that. So that's a whole nother avenue. So I'm just saying that, when the Amhersts and Northamptons want to talk about portfolio assessments, that's great. But I understand that. But you're talking 350 school districts to come up with. And this, I think, like I said. So any other comment? Roll call.
Mr. Deschamps,
Yes.
Mr. Willannon,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly,
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Ms. Muck,
Yes.
Mr. Alfonso,
Yes.
Mr. Wiggler,
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Nutter,
Yes.
Ms. LaRange,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes. No other subcommittee reports? Unfinished business, the regional agreement update, as you mentioned, there's a meeting in Tuesday, February 25th to start the work of putting things out there and to see what potentially will come back to us as a full committee to potentially change or not change. Any public comment?
don't see any hands up.
School committee concerns? None? 2 other items left in new business. Let's do the FY 25 budget transfer.
Stacy, that's you.
I gave Mr. Wiggler.
Oh, okay, great. All right. Okay.
Now, Stacy, now.
What do you want me to say?
The budget transfer, I have a motion. I move to transfer from 2110-3200 regular education instructional support, the amount of $130,914.79 to 2110-3200 special education instructional support. Transfer, it's basically transfers from 2110-3200 regular education instructional support, the amount of $3,465.30, and from 5100-5250 benefits, the amount of $28,011.22 to the following categories. 3,300, transportation services, the amount of $24,592.56. 3510-3520, athletics and student activities, the amount of $746.80. 4110-4300, building and grounds, the amount of $937.64. 4400/4450, technology infrastructure maintenance and support, in the amount of $5,199.53.
Is there a second? Second, okay. Any other rationale or anything discussion on that? Just as is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Questions?
Okay. Any questions? Roll call.
Mr. Deschamps,
Yes.
Mr. Willannon,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly,
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Ms. Muck,
Yes.
Mr. Alfonso,
Yes.
Mr. Wiggler,
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Nutter,
Yeah.
Ms. LaRange,
Yes.
Chairman Brophy.
Yes. School year calendar 25-26 school year?
So I believe the calendar's in your packet. This is the calendar that's been approved by the QRTA. So it has teachers starting on Monday and Tuesday. In August, this has been our date for the past several years. Students attending Wednesday through Friday. And then beginning the school year after that. Of note, our third professional development day will be on the 11th of November to allow families. It sort of extends the weekend. We've done that. Oh, I'm sorry, the 10th in between Veterans Day. Thank you. Yeah, so it extends that weekend for them. And there are am I right about that? 2 full weeks off for the holiday break. So that is the.
I thought you had talked about not liking all those half-day Wednesdays.
Yeah.
So that is something we can talk about when we negotiate next year. Yeah. So that puts our if we have 0 snow days, that puts us our last day, June 15th. And with 5 snow days next year, it puts us at the 23rd of June. It's pretty similar to this year. I think we actually probably might even have a little bit later end time this year.
Okay, is there a motion?
A motion to accept the 2025-2026 student calendar as proposed.
Second.
Second.
Comment, and I'm kind of following up. I know Peggy's brought this up maybe a couple of years. I'm kind of getting also to the point that we really need 10 half days of the year. And I'm not saying we're not. I don't know what goes on in a curriculum day, or I don't know how much, teachers need to expand what they're doing, but it just seems like a lot of days. So
Interruption to learning.
well, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, can we get by with fewer and getting done what we need to get done? I don't know, but it just seems like kind of staring at this nice colored coded calendar. Just a lot of days there.
There also might be a concern from a parent's standpoint in that what do you do for, if you're having a half day, and I know a lot of parents that live in my neighborhood are already sort of like,
Grumbling.
well, they're working on, suppose snow day this morning, turn from.
Yes, yeah.
Turn from
On a Wednesday was a half day, yeah.
Yep.
a lot of different things around that. And
Right before a week of vacation.
Right.
Yeah, one last week.
And they had 2 weeks off.
It is a concern for
Christmas.
parents, that's all.
Well, that's what you look at, you look at some of the days and you think, okay, they're having a half day and then 2 days later, they're having a week off. So it's tough to, I know what you're gonna do.
Yeah, no, we are absolutely looking at it. We think a lot. These half days have been in place.
For a while. I think people have adjusted to them.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, but I will say that certainly our admin team talks about these. We share your concerns. We look at our data and we think about it. The flip side, and I will just sort of share this because I sat in Shelley's position where you're in charge of PD and it seems like you never have enough time to do the PD you need. I think what's working in our favor right now is we recently adopted literacy curriculum. We're in process of adopting science and social studies. We anticipate going through a full curriculum review for math. Each time we adopt new curriculum, that comes with a lot of professional development that we need to do with our teachers. And then we have a lot of mandated training that we need to do. So yesterday, teachers engaged in ALICE training, and you heard Captain talk about the conflict of interest. So there's a lot that goes into these days, but do we think we can do them better and look at them differently? We think we can. So we'll just ask you for a little bit of time for us to kind of come and really think about that.
I think that there's a message here, so. Roll call?
Mr. Deschamps?
Yes.
Mr. Willinan?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain,
No.
Ms. Muck,
Yes.
Mr. Alfonso,
Yes.
Mr. Wiggler, Mrs. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Nutter,
Yes.
Ms. LaRange,
Sorry, yes.
and Chairman Brophy.
Yes. All right, we have a request for executive session. I need a motion to go in executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, to discuss strategy for preparation for negotiations for non-union personnel. And then we will come out and we will ratify Quabbin Regional School District School Nutrition Professional Contract, July 25th to June 30th, 2028. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
So in second, roll call.
Mr. Deschamps.
Yes.
Mr. Willinan,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly,
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Ms. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Alfonso,
Yes.
Mr. Wiggler,
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Nutter,
Yes.
Ms. LaRange,
Yes.
Chairman Brophy.
Yes.
How do we,
Yeah.
And so we have to,
Mirabelle?
Andrew's gonna take care of that.
are we ready?
Yes, we're all back in.
All right,
open
so we're
session.
back in session. So collective bargaining.
Yep.
Chair?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Quabbin Regional School Committee ratify the school nutrition professional contract dated from July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2028.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none?
Mr. Deschamps?
Yes.
Mr. Deschamps? Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Willinan,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly,
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Ms. Muck,
Yes.
Mr. Alfonso,
Yes.
Mr. Wiggler,
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Nutter,
Yes.
Ms. LaRange,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Thank you, and
Yes, I motion to adjourn.
adjourn, is there a second?
Yeah.
Oh, Alicia, second?
I think we want to just tell Stacy.
Oh,
I seem to hung around here for that time.
yes.
I don't want to speak for the committee, but basically.
Speak for the committee.
We spoke to the committee about a transition plan and having you assume the role next year or sooner based on when that transition would happen. And they are fine with us moving forward with that.
We have
So,
total confidence. in you.
yeah, we will
We can
work
sleep
that
at
out.
night now.
Congratulations.
Why didn't you just?
Now a motion. Oh,
Second.
Second, and
Thanks for all the
Alicia.
talk.